we are again. Reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Outside. I wonder what everyone thinks, like, don't these people, like, live in a house, you know, why
Don't they have a job?
Don't they have a job? Well, yeah, that could be a good one. Well, we do have a job. It's called being a Hare Krishna.
Right.
Right.
Don't clear anything up.
What are you talking about? Okay. So anyway, we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. Job or no job, read from the Bhagavatam.
Alright, it's Canto 3, Chapter 15, Text 45. We are still...
44.
No.
44.
44.
She stands corrected. She wouldn't say anything.
Om Namo
Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Forgot how noisy it is. Sorry, Jai
Om Namo Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Alright, chapter 44. Verse 44, sorry, not chapter. The Lord's beautiful face appeared to them like the inside of a blue lotus. And the Lord's smile appeared to be a blossoming jasmine flower. After seeing the face of the Lord, the sages were fully satisfied, and when they wanted to see him further, they looked upon the nails of his lotus feet, which resembled rubies. Thus they viewed the Lord's transcendental body again and again, and so they finally achieved meditation on the Lord's personal feature. Text 45. This is the form of the Lord which is meditated upon by the followers of the yoga process, and it is pleasing to the yogis in meditation. It is not imaginary but factual, as proved by great yogis.
Which chapter is it? 15.
Oh, which chapter is it?
No, my thing when I leant forward changed.
Okay, everyone's listening. It is not imaginary but factual, as proved by great yogis. The Lord is full in 8 kinds of achievement, but for others these achievements are not possible in full perfection. Purport. The success of the yoga process is very nicely described here. It is specifically mentioned that the form of the Lord as four-handed Narayan is the object of meditation for the followers of Yoga Marg. In the modern age, there are many so-called yogis who do not target their meditation on the four-handed Narayan form. Some of them try to meditate on something impersonal or void, but that is not approved by the great yogis who follow the standard method. The real Yoga Marg process is to control the senses, sit in a solitary and sanctified place, and meditate on the four-handed form of Narayan, decorated as described in this chapter, as he appeared before the 4 sages. This Narayan form is Krishna's expansion. Therefore, the Krishna Consciousness movement, which is now spreading, is the real topmost process of yoga practice.
Well, there you go.
It's a nice point.
Topmost yoga system. Krishna Consciousness is the highest yoga performance by trained devotional yogis. Reminds me when me and Turin Krishna Turin, if you're watching, you remember when we used to go on book distribution down in Woking and a few other places. We used to say, excuse me, we're yoga instructors. This book's all about yoga. And it was true. Of course, they had a different idea of what yoga was.
That's what Jagammohini would say when we would turn up like a penguin and a banana. I said, it don't quite work when we're dressed like this. Okay. We're yoga instructors.
I thought you said yogurt instructor. Okay. Despite all the allurement of yoga practice, the 8 kinds of yogic perfections are hardly achievable by the common man. But here it is described that the Lord who appeared before the 4 sages is himself full of all 8 of those perfections. The highest yoga marg process is to concentrate the mind 24 hours a day on Krishna. This is called Krishna Consciousness. The yoga system as described in Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, or as recommended in the Patanjali yoga process, is different from the nowadays practiced Hatha yoga, as it is generally understood in the Western countries. Real yoga practice is to control the senses, and after such control is established, to concentrate the mind on the Narayan form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Lord Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, and all the other Vishnu forms with 4 hands decorated with conch, lotus, club, and wheel are plenary expansions of Krishna. In Bhagavad Gita, excuse me, it is recommended that one meditate upon the form of the Lord. To practice concentration of the mind, one has to sit with the head and back in a straight line, and one must practice in a secluded place, sanctified by a sacred atmosphere. The yogi should observe the rules and regulations of brahmacharya, to strictly live a life of self-restraint and celibacy. One cannot practice yoga in a congested city, living a life of extravagancy, including unrestricted sex indulgence and adultery of the tongue. Adultery of the tongue. That's interesting. Yoga practice necessitates controlling the senses, and the beginning of sense control is to control the tongue. One who can control the tongue can also have control over the other senses. One cannot allow the tongue to take all kinds of forbidden food and drink, and at the same time advance in the practice of yoga. It is a very regrettable fact that many unauthorized so-called yogis come to the Western countries and exploit people's inclination towards yoga practice. Such unauthorized yogis even dare to say publicly that one can indulge in the habit of drinking and at the same time practice meditation.
Crazy. This is the world's longest purport, by the way.
Oh wow, oh my god.
It really is. Next paragraph. 5,000 years ago, Lord Krishna recommended yoga practice to Arjuna. But Arjuna frankly expressed his inability to follow the stringent rules and regulations of the yoga system. One should be very practical in every field of activity and should not waste his valuable time in practicing useless gymnastic feats in the name of yoga. Real yoga is to search out the full-handed Sufi soul within one's heart and see him perpetually in meditation. Such continued meditation is called samadhi, and the object of this meditation is the four-handed Narayan with bodily declarations, as described in this chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. If, however, one wants to meditate upon something void or impersonal, it will take a very long time before he achieves success in yoga practice. We cannot concentrate our mind on something void or impersonal. Real yoga is to fix the mind on the form of the Lord, the four-handed Narayan, who is sitting in everyone's heart.
By meditation, one can understand that God is seated within one's heart. Even if one does not know it, God is seated within the heart of everyone. Not only is he seated in the heart of the human being, but he is also within the hearts of cats and dogs. Bhagavad Gita certifies this fact by the declaration of Lord Shiva. Ishvara Sarva Bhutan. Declaration of the Lord. Sorry, and then the first word was Ishvara, and my mind read Shiva. So please forgive me. I'll repeat that again. Bhagavad Gita certifies this fact by the declaration of the Lord. Of the Lord. Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Hrideshe. The Ishwar, the supreme controller of the world, is seated in the heart of everyone. Not only is he in everyone's heart, but he is also present within the atom. No place is vacant or devoid of the presence of the Lord. That is the statement of Ishopanishad. God is present everywhere, and his right of proprietorship applies to everything. The feature of the Lord by which he is present everywhere is called Paramatma. Atma means the individual soul, and Paramatma means individual super soul. Both Atma and Paramatma are individual persons. The difference between Atma and Paramatma is that the Atma, or the soul, is present only in a particular body, whereas the Paramatma is present everywhere.
Oh.
What?
Oh. Oh, sorry, there's a large bug on me.
It actually wasn't large. You could probably have seen it on the screen. It was extremely small, and it was just a flying ant.
Ooh.
Meanwhile, I've lost my place now.
To crawl up on
Okay,
me.
the difference between Atma and Paramatma is that the Atma, the soul, is present only in a particular body, whereas the Paramatma is present everywhere. In this connection, the example of the sun is very nice. An individual person may be situated in one place, but the sun, even though a similar individual entity, is present on the head of every single person. In the Bhagavad Gita, this is explained. Therefore, even though the qualities of all entities, including the Lord, are equal, the Supersoul is different from the individual soul by quantitative power of expansion. The Lord, or the Supersoul, can expand himself into millions of different forms, whereas the individual soul cannot do so. So it's nice. This is giving a bit of a distinction between the Atma, us, the Jiva, the spirit soul, and the Paramatma, which is obviously that localized aspect of the Supreme Personality of Godhead situated within the heart of every living entity. Not just human beings, but also, as Prabhupada said earlier, cats and dogs.
Interesting concept. A localized, Supreme Person. You can get a localized version of the Supreme Person, of the Absolute Truth. That's interesting. Yeah. Alright, next paragraph. We're still in the same purport to text 45. So next paragraph, the Super Soul, being seated in everyone's hearts, can witness everyone's activities, past, present and future. In the Upanishads, the Super Soul is described as being seated with the individual soul as friend and witness. As a friend, the Lord is always anxious to get back his friend, the individual soul, and bring him back home, back to Godhead. And as a witness, he is the bestower of all benedictions, and he endows each individual with the result of his actions. The Super Soul gives the individual soul all facilities to achieve whatever he desires to enjoy in this material world. Suffering is a reaction to the living entity's prosperity, propensity to try to lord it over the material world. But the Lord instructs his friend, the individual soul, who is also his son, to give up all other engagements and simply surrender unto him for perpetual bliss and an eternal life full of knowledge. This is the last instruction of Bhagavad Gita, the most authorized and widely read book on all varieties of yoga. Thus, the last word of Bhagavad Gita is the last word in the perfection of yoga.
These are the last words. Last word is wherever there's Krishna, wherever there's Arjuna, there's bound to be opulence, victory, and...
I thought the last instruction was give up all
varieties of religion. Sarva Dharma and Pratyaya.
right. And then it goes into this.
Well, this just says, thus the last word of Bhagavad Gita. But anyway.
No, it says it's the last instruction.
Where? I think it says the last word.
This is the last instruction of Bhagavad Gita.
Okay. Here it says, thus
That's the
last word
final
of the Bhagavad
sentence.
Gita.
But it says this is the last instruction.
Oh, okay. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that a person who is always absorbed in Krishna consciousness is the topmost yogi. What is Krishna consciousness? As the individual soul is present by his consciousness throughout his entire body, the super soul or Paramama is present throughout the whole creation by super consciousness. This super conscious energy is initiated by the individual soul who has limited consciousness. I can understand what is going on within my limited body, but I cannot feel what is going on in another's body. I am present throughout my body by my consciousness, but my consciousness is not present in another's body. The super soul or Paramatma, however, being present everywhere and within everyone, is also conscious of everyone's existence. The theory that the soul and the super soul are one is not acceptable because it is not confirmed by authoritative Vedic literature. The individual soul's consciousness cannot act in superconsciousness. This superconsciousness can be achieved, however, by dovetailing individual consciousness with the consciousness of the Supreme. This dovetailing process is called surrender or saranagati or Krishna consciousness. From the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, we learn very clearly that Arjuna in the beginning did not want to fight with his brothers and relatives, but after understanding Bhagavad Gita, he dovetailed his consciousness with the superconsciousness of Krishna, and he was then in Krishna consciousness.
Next paragraph. Personally, Krishna consciousness acts by the dictation of Krishna. In the beginning of Krishna consciousness, dictation is received through the transparent medium of the spiritual master. When one is sufficiently trained and acts in submissive faith and love for Krishna under the direction of the bona fide spiritual master, the dovetailing process becomes more firm and accurate. This stage of devotional service by the devotee in Krishna consciousness is the most perfect stage of the yoga system. At this stage, Krishna or the Supersoul dictates from within, while from without the devotee is helped by the spiritual master who is the bona fide representative of Krishna. From within he helps the devotee as Chaitya, who is seated within the heart of everyone. Understanding that God is seated within everyone's heart is not, however, sufficient. One has to be acquainted with God from both within and without, and one must take dictation from within and without to act in Krishna consciousness. This is the highest perfectional stage of the human form of life and the topmost perfection of all yoga.
Wow. It's a very long purport.
Yeah, because look.
Yeah, I know.
Not sure when you do.
I'll keep reading. We'll finish it.
Okay.
For a perfect yogi, there are 8 kinds of super achievements. Super achievements, not just achievements, but super achievements. One can become lighter than air. One can become smaller than the atom. One can become bigger than a mountain. One can achieve whatever he desires. One can control like the Lord, and so on. But when one rises to the perfectional stage of receiving dictation from the Lord, that is greater than any stage of material achievements above mentioned, or mentioned above. The breathing exercise of the yoga system, which is generally practiced, is just the beginning.
It's just the beginning.
Meditation on the Supersoul is just another step forward. But to obtain direct contact with the Supersoul and take dictation from him is the highest perfectional stage. The breathing exercises of meditation practice were very difficult even 5,000 years ago. Otherwise, Arjuna would not have rejected the proposal of Krishna that he adopt this system. This age of Kali is called the fallen age. In this age, people in general are short-living. and very slow to understand self-realization or spiritual life. They are mostly unfortunate, and therefore, if someone is a little bit interested in self-realization, he is likely to be misguided by so many frauds. Doesn't lend a lot of faith. The only way to realize the perfect stage of yoga is to follow the principles of Bhagavad Gita as practiced by Lord Chaitanya. This is the simplest and highest perfection of yoga practice. Lord Chaitanya demonstrated this Krishna Consciousness yoga system in a practical manner simply by chanting the holy name of Krishna, as prescribed in the Vedanta, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and many important Puranas.
Next paragraph. The largest number of Indians follow this yoga process, and in the United States, it is gradually spreading in many cities. It is very easy and practical for this age, especially for those who are serious about success in yoga. No other process of yoga can be successful in this age. The meditation process was possible in the Golden Age, Satya Yuga, because people in that age used to live for hundreds of thousands of years. If one wants success in practical yoga practice, it is advised that you take to the chanting of
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
You will actually feel himself making progress. In Bhagavad Gita, this practice of Krishna consciousness is prescribed as Raja Vidya, or the king of all erudition.
Erudition.
That's what I said.
Erudition. Those who have taken to this most sublime Bhakti Yoga system, who practice devotional service and transcendental love of Krishna, can testify to its happy and easy execution. The four sages, Sanaka, Sanatana, Sanandana, and Sanat Kumara also became attracted by the features of the Lord and the transcendental aroma of the dust of his lotus feet, as already described in verse 43. Last paragraph.
Yoga necessitates controlling the senses, and Bhakti Yoga or Krishna consciousness is the process of purifying the senses. When the senses are purified, they are automatically controlled. One cannot stop the activities of the senses by artificial means. But if one purifies the senses by engaging in the service of the Lord, the senses not only can be controlled from rubbish engagement, but can be engaged in the Lord's transcendental service as aspired to by the four sages Sanaka, Shanaka, Sanatan, Sanandana, and Sanat Kumara. Krishna consciousness is not therefore a manufactured concoction of the speculative mind. It is the process enjoined in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse 34.
Manmana Mamabadmakto. I think we should stop
And on
there.
that note, we will end.
Well, any thoughts? I mean, after that long paragraph, don't you have any thoughts? Maybe read 4 sentences and we speak for 20
No, well,
minutes.
you do, yeah.
I know, yeah.
So for this reading, we let Prabhupada speak.
Just for a change. Yeah, because today is also Srila Prabhupada's disappearance
You watch this
day.
on Wednesday, but we're filming it on Monday, and so today is Srila Prabhupada's disappearance anniversary.
So it seems like Prabhupada took a lot of time to go through the principle of what real yoga is, what a perfect yogi looks like, and how the impact of this movement on people around the world. And the Bhakti Yoga is definitely the topmost of all the yoga systems, and it's easier to practice, and you make tangible advancement more quickly. A few thoughts from my side.
Try.
So this was a long one and a lot of reading, which was good, straight from Prabhupada. So thank you all very much for tuning in. Anything you'd like to say? I'd like to bring the book into full picture.
See you next time. time, dear listeners and viewers.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.